The city lights of New York shimmered against the rainy evening streets. Inside the bustling Riverside bistro, Emma Collins moved gracefully between tables, a warm smile masking the fatigue of a 12-hour shift. Her apron was stained with coffee and sauces, but her eyes sparkled with quiet resilience. Tonight, something felt different. The usual mix of business lunches and casual diners was overshadowed by an unusual tension. A private section at the back was cordoned off, and a tall, sharply dressed man entered, the kind of presence that made the air thicken. Alexander "Alex" Hawthorne was a billionaire known for his icy demeanor and sharp business acumen. Yet tonight, his expression wasn't focused on work. It was fractured, weary, and almost lost. Rumor had it that his family was in turmoil, that he hadn't spoken to his teenage daughter, Lily, in months. Emma approached his table carrying a tray with practiced ease. "Good evening, sir. What can I get you tonight?" she asked, her voice calm but confident. Alex barely looked up, his mind elsewhere. "Just a coffee," he muttered, fingers tapping impatiently on the table. As Emma poured the coffee, she noticed something unusual. A framed photograph partially tucked under a menu. A young girl, no older than 15, with her father, both laughing. The joy in her smile seemed distant in Alex's eyes. "Is she your daughter?" Emma asked gently, almost hesitantly. Alex froze, startled by her observation. Most people would never dare speak of his private life. "Yes," he replied curtly, looking away. "She doesn't talk to me anymore." Emma's heart softened. There was no judgment, only understanding. "Sometimes," she said softly, "it's not about who's right or wrong. Sometimes it's about finding the first step to fix what's broken." Alex's eyes lingered on her, curiosity mingling with skepticism. He wasn't used to strangers speaking so boldly, and yet, something in her tone felt like a small lifeline. Emma left his table with the coffee, but a thought stayed in Alex's mind. Could a waitress, of all people, see the cracks in his life that no one else could? That night, the city continued to buzz outside the bistro. Inside, a quiet connection had been sparked, an unlikely bond that would slowly unravel a billionaire's cold, fractured world and reveal a story no one expected. The next morning, Emma arrived at Riverside Bistro earlier than usual, the city still draped in a soft gray light. Her mind replayed last night's encounter with Alex Hawthorne. She couldn't shake the image of his haunted eyes, the photo of his daughter tucked under the menu, and the tension that lingered in the air. During her shift, she overheard whispers from the staff about Alex Hawthorne, the billionaire whose personal life was as notorious as his business empire. Most employees avoided discussing him, fearing gossip or reprisal, but Emma had learned to read people quickly. Something in Alex's demeanor told her this wasn't about money, power, or status. It was about loneliness, regret, and a family teetering on the edge. Later that afternoon, as Emma delivered a plate of pasta to a quiet corner table, she noticed Alex sitting alone again, fingers drumming on the table, eyes unfocused. The framed photo of his daughter remained prominently displayed, like a silent accusation or plea. Emma approached carefully. "Sir, may I ask something?" she said softly, setting down his plate. Alex looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly, but there was no impatience this time. "Go ahead," he said, voice quieter than yesterday. You look like you miss her," Emma said gently, "like maybe you don't know how to reach her anymore. I've seen it with my little brother. Sometimes the smallest gesture can start bridging the gap. Even a simple conversation. You just need the first step." Alex leaned back, his expression a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. "And what would you know about it?" he asked, though his tone lacked hostility. Emma smiled faintly, not with arrogance but with quiet confidence. "I work with families all the time, even if I'm just serving coffee. I hear things. I notice things. People usually don't say much, but sometimes they need someone to notice anyway." Something in her sincerity struck a chord. Alex looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, allowed himself to imagine a hand reaching across the divide he had unintentionally created with his daughter. Over the next few days, Emma began noticing patterns. Alex's distracted glances at the bistro's dessert menu when his phone lit up with Lily's name, his hesitant gestures when his staff mentioned family-friendly events, and the almost imperceptible sighs of exhaustion that hinted at sleepless nights. One evening, while closing tables, Emma noticed Alex struggling with a receipt for a catering order, frustration evident on his face. Without thinking, she stepped over. "Need a hand, sir?" she asked. He hesitated but nodded, allowing her to guide him through the paperwork. As she worked, she spoke softly, almost to herself. "Sometimes the right approach isn't forceful. It's gentle. It's listening. It's showing you care without overwhelming." Alex watched her, a faint spark of admiration flickering in his eyes. He realized that this waitress, with no authority or influence in his world, seemed to understand something he had long forgotten, that hearts, especially a father's and daughter, could be mended not with grand gestures but with consistent, thoughtful effort. That night, Emma left the bistro under a glowing street lamp, rain lightly pattering on the sidewalk. She felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. She knew Alex's world was far removed from hers, yet she couldn't ignore the pull to help, to see a father reconnect with his child, and to witness a family healed. Little did she know, Alex was thinking of her as he walked toward his penthouse, the framed photo of Lily clutched in his hand. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to consider a small, daring step, a message, a call, a gesture that might begin to repair the distance. Across the city, fate was quietly weaving their lives together, and the first threads of trust and subtle connection had been laid. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Riverside Bistro, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden floors. Emma moved with quiet efficiency, her mind occupied not only with the morning rush of orders but with the image of Alex Hawthorne, his expression haunted, and the daughter he had distanced himself from. During a brief lull, she noticed Alex sitting at his usual corner table, scrolling through his phone with a mixture of frustration and longing. His posture, though composed, betrayed tension, shoulders tight, fingers drumming, eyes distant. Emma knew the moment had come. She approached carefully, balancing a tray of breakfast orders. "Sir, I hope you don't mind me saying this," she began softly, placing the coffee before him, "but maybe she's waiting for a small sign from you. Something gentle, a message, a note, something that tells her you're still thinking about her." Alex looked up sharply, skepticism written across his face. "And you think a waitress knows how to fix this?" he asked, though the edge in his voice had softened. Emma leaned slightly closer, her eyes steady. "Not fix, just start. Sometimes the smallest gesture opens the door, even when words fail." He studied her, the corners of his mouth twitching in a way that suggested both doubt and curiosity. Finally, he nodded, almost imperceptibly. "And what do you suggest?" Emma smiled faintly. "Start simple. Send her a card, something handwritten. No lectures, no demands, just tell her you're thinking of her. A father's presence doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be consistent." That evening, Alex sat in his penthouse, a blank card in hand, staring at the pen as if it were a riddle. The city stretched below him, lights twinkling like distant stars, and for the first time he considered vulnerability, not as weakness but as courage. Emma's words echoed in his mind. "Just start." Meanwhile, Emma closed the bistro, rain beginning to fall again, mist curling around the neon signs. She couldn't help but worry. What if her advice backfired? What if Alex's attempts were rebuffed by Lily? Yet, she knew she couldn't remain passive. Some connections demanded risk, and this was one of them. The next day, she witnessed the subtle beginning of change. Alex, usually brisk and detached, lingered in the bistro longer than necessary, phone in hand. Emma noticed the softening in his eyes, the hesitant smile he offered to the staff, and a quiet, almost human warmth that had been absent for months. Later, as she walked home under the soft drizzle, she imagined Lily receiving her father's card, feeling the tremor of hope that maybe, just maybe, someone cared enough to try. Emma's heart ached with anticipation, and yet there was a thrill, a sense that the fragile bridge she had helped suggest could grow stronger, connecting father and daughter in ways neither had dared to imagine. That night in the glow of his study, Alex finally wrote. The words were simple, imperfect, but sincere. "Lily, thinking of you. Hopping we can talk soon." He hesitated only briefly before sending the message, a small but monumental step toward mending the distance. Across the city, Emma's intuition had guided the first thread of reconciliation, yet she knew the journey was just beginning. Tension, misunderstandings, and old wounds still lingered, but for the first time, the possibility of connection felt real. And somewhere deep in Alex's mind, he found himself thinking of the waitress, not just for her advice, but for the quiet, unwavering understanding she had offered, and the courage she inspired in him to take a step he had avoided for far too long. The morning sun spilled softly through the curtains of Lily Hawthorne's apartment, painting her room in muted gold. The 15-year-old sat cross-legged on her bed, phone in hand, staring at a new message notification. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. "Lily, thinking of you. Hopping we can talk soon." Her heart raced, a mix of anger, hesitation, and a flicker of hope igniting inside her. It had been months since her father, Alex Hawthorne, had tried to reach out, or at least, months since she had allowed herself to believe he might. She threw herself onto her bed, burying her face in her pillow. The words were simple, almost painfully understated, but they carried weight. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt seen. And yet, pride and hurt fought against her curiosity. Meanwhile, across town, Emma closed the Riverside Bistro for the evening. Her mind was alive with worry and anticipation. She couldn't know how Lily would react, but she sensed the first thread of possibility had been planted. She had guided Alex to take that small, vulnerable step, and now the outcome rested in Lily's hands. The next day, Lily arrived at her father's office under the guise of a school project meeting. Her mother had arranged it, unaware of the exact tension that awaited. Alex stood in the corner of his expansive office, eyes scanning the skyline, a faint anxiety etched across his normally composed face. When Lily stepped inside, her posture stiffened, gaze fixed forward. Silence stretched like a taut wire, charged with unspoken words. Alex swallowed, feeling the weight of months of distance pressing upon him. Emma, who had offered to stay nearby as a quiet guide, watched from the reception area. She knew this first meeting wasn't about resolutions. It was about presence, acknowledgement, and letting the first words flow without judgment. Alex broke the silence, his voice soft but steady. "Lily, I know I've made mistakes. I haven't always been here and I know that hurt you. But I'm here now and I want to try if you'll let me." Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why now, after all this time?" Alex stepped closer, carefully bridging the physical and emotional distance. "Because I realized I can't change the past, but I can start with today, one step at a time. And I want you to lead me, to tell me when I'm wrong, to tell me what you need." The tension in the room softened slightly, like the first rays of sun piercing a storm. Lily's defenses wavered, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a conversation with her father, not one filled with anger but possibility. Emma quietly entered, offering a gentle smile. Sometimes, the first words are the hardest, but even one honest conversation can be the bridge that leads to many more. Alex looked at her, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Lily glanced at Emma, sensing the quiet guidance that had brought them both here. In that moment, an unspoken understanding passed among the three. The path forward would be fragile, emotional, and full of effort, but the door to healing had been cracked open. That night, as the city lights twinkled outside, Alex sat alone with his thoughts, the memory of Lily's tentative expression lingering. Emma returned to her small apartment, exhausted but hopeful, knowing that she had played a crucial role in reconnecting a father and daughter on the verge of rediscovering each other. Across the skyline, the city held its breath, silently witnessing the first fragile bridge being built. A bridge that, if nurtured, could heal wounds long ignored and change lives in ways no one could have predicted. The next morning, Lily sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, scrolling past the notification from her father. She had read it a dozen times already, hesitating to respond. A storm of conflicting emotions churned inside her: anger, longing, and the faintest glimmer of hope. Emma, meanwhile, had stopped by Alex's office under the pretense of delivering a late lunch order. She sensed the subtle tension in the air, the delicate fragility of the first step Alex had taken. Quietly, she offered advice. "Sometimes it's not about words alone. Actions matter more. Little gestures, consistent ones, they speak louder than messages." Inspired, Alex decided on a subtle approach. He remembered Lily's love for sketching, her art supplies scattered in her room during visits he had missed. That afternoon, he arranged for a small package to be delivered to her, a set of professional sketching pencils and a personalized note. "For your next masterpiece. Thought of you today." Lily's eyes widened when she saw the package. She held the pencils, her hands trembling slightly. It wasn't grand or flashy, just thoughtful, but it spoke volumes. For the first time, she felt her father reaching out in a way that wasn't about apologies or explanations. It was about acknowledging her, validating her world. Curious but cautious, she called Emma. He sent me something," Lily whispered, excitement tinged with disbelief. Emma smiled softly. "See, he's trying, and now it's up to you how far you let him in. Trust has to grow slowly, like a small flame that turns into a fire." Encouraged, Lily decided to test him further. She drafted a tentative reply, carefully worded, almost a challenge. "Thanks, I appreciate it. Can we meet this weekend? Just to talk?" When Alex received the message, a rare smile broke across his usually composed face. He realized Lily's cautious willingness was a sign. Not full forgiveness, not yet, but an opening, a crack in the wall that had separated them for months. That weekend, Lily arrived at Alex's penthouse, carrying a sketchpad and cautious determination. Alex greeted her with a mixture of nervousness and hope, careful to keep his gestures gentle, approachable. The conversation began awkwardly, Lily testing boundaries, Alex responding with patience and attentiveness. Emma watched discreetly from the reception, silently guiding them with her quiet intuition, letting space be respected, allowing conversation to flow organically, and reminding Alex that healing was a marathon, not a sprint. Hours passed as they talked, drew sketches together, and even laughed at shared memories long buried. Alex marveled at Lily's talent, her sharp wit, and the subtle ways she revealed herself, not all at once, but in small, meaningful glimpses. By evening, the tension had softened into a fragile warmth. Lily left with a tentative smile, her heart lighter than it had been in months. Alex, standing by the window watching the city lights shimmer, felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that reconnecting with his daughter wasn't about grand gestures. It was about presence, consistency, and trust earned step by step. Emma, walking home through the glowing city streets, felt a quiet satisfaction. The first real bonds were forming, fragile but resilient, guided by small, intentional acts of love and understanding. Somewhere in the distance, the city hummed, oblivious to the quiet miracles happening within its towers, miracles of connection, courage, and hearts slowly learning to trust again. The weekend sunlight filtered through the high windows of the Hawthorne penthouse, casting a serene glow that contrasted sharply with the tension brewing inside. Alex had hoped this visit would be smooth, a gentle step toward reconnecting with Lily, but the past had its own plans. Lily sat on the couch, sketchpad balanced on her knees, drawing with quiet intensity. Alex approached cautiously, holding a cup of tea, a small gesture, deliberate and thoughtful. "Mind if I join you?" he asked softly. Lily's eyes flicked up, wary. "If you want, but I don't owe you anything," she said, the edge in her voice betraying her fear of disappointment. Alex nodded, taking a seat across from her. He could feel the old walls she had built, the ones he had helped construct through absence, neglect, and the weight of unspoken expectations. "I know," he said gently. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to be present, one step at a time." The moment hung in fragile silence, then Lily's phone buzzed. A text from her mother, sharp and accusatory. "Remember, he's a businessman first. Don't get hurt." Lily's fingers tightened around the sketchpad, and a shadow crossed her face, doubt and fear threatening the fragile warmth that had begun to bloom. Emma, standing discreetly in the kitchen as she had been invited under the guise of helping with dinner, sensed the rising tension. She stepped forward carefully, her voice calm and deliberate. "Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most aren't trying to anymore. They just don't know how to show love. You can't erase the past, Lily, but you can shape the present." Lily looked up at Emma, her eyes wide. "And if I get hurt again?" Emma smiled, soft but firm. "Then you stand, you learn, and you keep building. Because sometimes the risk is worth the reward. You're strong enough to decide who deserves your trust." Encouraged by Emma's words, Lily returned her focus to her sketches. Alex watched, heart pounding, realizing that trust was a delicate negotiation. One wrong move, one misstep, and months of fragile progress could crumble. Later that evening, a forgotten argument from months ago resurfaced. Alex tried to mention a family tradition he had hoped to continue, but Lily's sharp response cut through. "You never cared enough to be here before. Why start now?" Alex's chest tightened. He wanted to respond with defensiveness, but Emma's earlier guidance echoed in his mind. "Listen, be patient. Presence matters more than words." He took a deep breath and said quietly, "Because I'm here now, and I want to try not to erase the past but to build something real from this moment." The sincerity in his voice, combined with the small, consistent gestures he had made, cards, gifts, time spent together, began to soften Lily's walls. By the time dinner arrived, they shared tentative smiles, the tension easing just enough for hope to flicker. Emma cleaned up the kitchen quietly, reflecting on her role. She hadn't forced anything, just guided, observed, and nudged. The bond was fragile, but it was alive. She knew more challenges awaited. Old grudges, misunderstandings, and pride would continue to test the family. Yet with each step, each act of patience and courage, the threads of reconnection grew stronger. Outside, the city lights twinkled, indifferent yet watchful. Inside the penthouse, quiet victories were taking place. A father learning to listen, a daughter learning to trust, and a waitress who had become the unseen architect of healing. The following week, a soft rain coated the streets of New York, turning the city into a mosaic of glistening reflections. Inside the Hawthorne penthouse, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchpad resting on her knees. Her drawings had become more than an escape. They were a language she could share without words, a bridge to a father she had once believed was unreachable. Alex entered quietly, carrying a tray with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. The smell of cocoa mingled with the faint scent of rain coming through the slightly open window. "Thought you might like a break," he said, setting the tray beside her. He watched as she hesitated, then accepted the gesture, her eyes softening just enough to let him in. Emma, perched on the couch under the pretense of tidying up some books, observed silently. She had suggested this small routine, shared drinks, casual conversation, moments that didn't demand vulnerability, yet gently encouraged it. Today, it would be the catalyst. Lily finally looked up. "Why do you even care so much now?" Her voice was curious, tinged with skepticism. "Why not just stay away like before?" Alex sank onto the floor beside her, careful to match her pace. His eyes, usually steely in business meetings, were open, vulnerable. "Because I realized the things I ignored before were the most important. I can't change what I missed, Lily, but I can be here now for you. And that matters to me." Her gaze flickered, emotions rising and falling like a storm tide. She wanted to lash out, to shield herself, but the consistency of his small gestures, the card, the sketches, the hot chocolate, had begun to chip away at her defenses. Emma gently intervened. "Sometimes the people we think can't understand us. They just need to see that we're trying. Effort matters, Lily, not perfection, just effort." Lily's fingers traced the rim of her mug, a thoughtful silence settling. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know if I can just forgive everything." Alex nodded, a quiet ache in his chest. "I'm not asking you to. I just want the chance to be part of your life, to learn to listen, to make this right slowly." For the first time in months, Lily's guard lowered. She looked down at her sketchpad, then up again, her eyes glimmering with the tentative hope of connection. She offered a small smile, a start, fragile but sincere. Emma's heart swelled at the sight. She knew this was the breakthrough she had been guiding toward. Vulnerability met with patience, consistency met with courage, and the quiet forging of trust in the unlikeliest of ways. As evening descended, Alex suggested a spontaneous idea, a short walk to the nearby riverside park, just the 2 of them. Lily hesitated, but something in her stirred. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps the small but steady evidence of his commitment. She nodded. They walked side by side, rain-soaked streets reflecting the city lights like a river of stars. For once, the conversation flowed naturally, laughter mingling with stories, memories shared without judgment. The distance between father and daughter felt smaller, one step at a time. Emma watched from the window of the penthouse unseen, a quiet guardian of the moment. She knew the true test was only beginning. Outside influences, lingering doubts, and past wounds could still challenge them. But for tonight, a barrier had been broken. The connection was real, tangible, and stronger than before. And as the city pulsed around them, Alex and Lily discovered that sometimes the smallest acts, the shared drink, the quiet attention, the sincere words, were what built the strongest bridges. A week later, the Hawthorne penthouse was unusually quiet. Alex had been on edge all day, juggling high-stakes meetings at Apex Enterprises and the delicate process of rebuilding trust with Lily. The small victories, the shared drinks, the walk in the park, the sketching moments, had filled him with hope, but Emma had cautioned him that every fragile bond faced its storms. Suddenly, Alex's phone rang. It was Lily's school principal. The news hit like a thunderclap. Lily had been involved in a minor accident during an after-school project. No one was seriously hurt, but she had been shaken and her emotions were raw. Alex's heart raced. He dropped everything, calling for Emma. "We need to go. Now." Emma arrived within minutes, already alert and calm, her presence a stabilizing force. "Stay focused, Alex. She needs you, but she also needs patience. Don't let panic make you rush or overreact." At the hospital, Alex found Lily sitting on a bed, clutching a small stuffed animal. Her eyes brimmed with tears, a mix of fear and frustration. I didn't mean to cause trouble," she whispered. Alex knelt beside her, keeping his voice low and steady. "Lily, accidents happen. You're safe and that's what matters. I'm here now, okay?" Her defenses wavered, but anxiety and pride clung tightly. She flinched when he tried to hug her, uncertain if she could fully trust his presence yet. Emma, standing nearby, stepped in gently. "It's okay to be scared. It's okay to lean on the people who care for you. You don't have to face this alone." Emma's words had the desired effect. Lily relaxed slightly, allowing Alex to hold her hand. He realized that crises weren't just challenges. They were opportunities to demonstrate consistency and reliability, to show that his care wasn't just a series of gestures but a commitment. Over the next few hours, Alex stayed by her side, even when doctors and nurses fussed over minor scrapes. He shared stories, held her hand during tests, and quietly reminded her that mistakes didn't define her, only how she responded did. Later, Emma orchestrated a small moment of comfort, a little care package with warm socks, a drawing pad, and a note. "Brave isn't about not being scared. It's about facing the storm with someone by your side." Lily's eyes lit up. She glanced at her father, understanding the depth of the support surrounding her. That evening, as they left the hospital, Lily leaned slightly into Alex, a gesture small yet monumental. She whispered, "Thanks for not giving up on me." Alex felt a surge of emotion, pride, love, and the growing certainty that their bond, though tested, was resilient. Emma smiled quietly from the backseat of the car, her role as silent guardian and strategic guide proving invaluable. Outside, New York's skyline glittered under a clearing storm, reflections of lights dancing in puddles. Alex and Lily walked side by side, stronger for having weathered the unexpected trial. The experience had shown them both that rebuilding trust wasn't just about words or gestures. It was about showing up consistently through the storms life inevitably brought. And somewhere in the quiet of the city night, Emma reflected on the journey so far. The fragile bridge between father and daughter had faced its first real test and had held, but she knew more challenges lay ahead, requiring patience, creativity, and courage to keep the bond intact. The morning sun painted long shadows across the Hawthorne penthouse, but the warmth of the light could not chase away the tension that lingered inside. Alex had just returned from a late-night board meeting, his mind still occupied with the delicate threads of trust he was weaving with Lily. Emma had suggested he focus on transparency, something he had avoided for years, but he knew some truths might be harder to reveal than words could ever capture. As Lily worked quietly on a sketch at the dining table, Alex felt a familiar unease settle in his chest. He had avoided this conversation for so long, fearing it would undo the progress he had so carefully nurtured. But he knew that honesty, even when painful, was essential for true connection. Emma, noticing his hesitation, gave him a small, reassuring nod. "It's time," she whispered softly. "She's ready for the truth as much as anyone can be." Taking a deep breath, Alex pulled out a dusty, leather-bound photo album from a drawer. The edges were frayed, the pages filled with memories that had long been tucked away. "Lily, there's something I've never told you. Something about our family, about me," he began, his voice trembling slightly, betraying the vulnerability he rarely allowed. Lily looked up, curiosity mixing with caution. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex opened the album to a faded photograph of a woman holding a baby, her own mother, whom Lily had never met. "Your grandmother, she passed away when I was very young. I never spoke about her because it was too painful, but she left something for us. A journal, letters, and dreams she wanted us to follow. I've kept it hidden, thinking I could handle it alone, but I was wrong. You deserve to know." Lily's eyes widened. Her father, usually composed and reserved, was revealing a side she had never seen. She leaned forward, absorbing every word, the sketches forgotten on the table. "Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked, a mixture of hurt and wonder in her voice. "I was afraid," Alex admitted. "Afraid it would open old wounds, afraid I'd fail you again. But hiding the truth, it never protected anyone. Not you, not me." Emma stepped closer, her presence gentle but grounding. "Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that heal us the most. It's not just about the past, it's about choosing how you move forward together." Alex handed Lily the journal, its leather cover worn and inviting. "These are her words, her hopes, her guidance. I want us to read them together, to learn and to honor her memory. Not because it fixes everything, but because it's a way for us to grow as a family." Lily hesitated, then took the journal. Slowly she opened it, her eyes scanning the delicate handwriting, absorbing the stories and dreams of the woman she never knew. Tears welled up, but they were not tears of sadness alone. They were tears of connection, of understanding, and of the fragile, beautiful bond beginning to bloom between her and her father. For the first time in months, Alex saw Lily smile genuinely, not cautiously, not tentatively, but fully. The walls he had feared would remain were crumbling, replaced with trust, hope, and love. Outside, the city moved unaware, but inside the penthouse, a profound transformation was taking place. The fragile bridge had faced its greatest challenge yet, and was holding stronger than ever. Emma, observing silently, felt the quiet satisfaction of knowing her guidance had helped uncover not just a truth, but a family's path to healing. But even as the warmth filled the room, an unspoken tension lingered. A reminder that the final step, the ultimate reconciliation, was yet to come. And when it arrived, it would be a moment of cinematic intensity, full of emotion and unforgettable for both father and daughter. The evening skyline of New York shimmered through the panoramic windows of the Hawthorne penthouse, golden lights reflecting the promise of new beginnings. The air was thick with anticipation, tinged with the scent of rain from earlier that day. Alex and Lily sat together on the couch, the leather worn and familiar, yet tonight it felt like a sanctuary, a space for honesty, trust, and healing. The journal lay open between them, pages filled with dreams, memories, and lessons from a grandmother Lily had never met. Alex's hand hovered over hers, hesitating for just a moment before he finally spoke. "Lily, I don't want you to just read her words. I want us to live them, to create our own memories together. Not perfect, not always easy, but ours." Lily looked up, her eyes glistening with emotion. I want that too," she whispered, a tremor of vulnerability in her voice. "I was scared you wouldn't care enough, but you've shown me you do, even with the small things." Alex pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her like he never wanted to let go. Months of absence, misunderstandings, and pain seemed to melt into that one moment, replaced with warmth, trust, and the beginning of a bond stronger than either had dared to hope. Emma watched quietly from the doorway, her heart swelling. She had guided them, nudged them, and held the fragile pieces together. But this moment belonged entirely to Alex and Lily. A soft smile graced her face, knowing her quiet wisdom had helped rebuild a family once on the brink of breaking. Lily pulled back slightly, resting her head against Alex's chest. "Thank you for not giving up," she whispered. Alex kissed the top of her head, voice thick with emotion. "I'll never give up on you, Lily. Never." For the first time, the Hawthorne penthouse felt truly like home. Not just a space filled with luxury, but a place filled with love, understanding, and hope. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the quiet miracle that had unfolded within these walls. Inside, hearts had been mended, and a family had been rebuilt. Emma stepped forward, smiling at both of them. "Remember," she said softly, "it's not about never falling or making mistakes. It's about always trying and always showing up. That's what love really is." As Alex and Lily shared one last, lingering smile, the camera of imagination lingers on the city skyline, golden light reflecting the promise of countless new beginnings. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that touches the heart. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this story moved you the most?